Good morning, and welcome to this week's very special Marquette in Motion show.
This week, Marquette in Motion had the amazing opportunity to welcome U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley to its studio.
We'll have that extended interview coming up shortly. First, however, here in segment 1, Justina will be sharing exciting news for Marquette freshman Kaylee Coos.
Then, Jeb and Garrett will be looking ahead to spring sports.
We'll share the top 10 things you may or may not know about Senator Chuck Grassley.
Then, in segment 2 and 3, we'll have that interview with the senator.
Finally, we'll close out the show by looking ahead.
As we look ahead, Kaylee Coos has a very exciting day coming up on Monday. Here's Justina Denlinger to tell us all about it.
Marquette's own Kaylee Coos has received an All-State distinction for individual speech for her prose piece, Braces, by Emily Carr. The All-State nomination means that Kaylee is considered the best of the best in her category, and thus affords her the opportunity to perform at the All-State Speech Festival this Monday, March 25th, at the University of Northern Iowa. Opening ceremonies will begin at 8:30 in the McLeod Center, and Kaylee Coos will perform in the 11 o'clock hour. Kaylee is only a freshman, so this is an especially amazing accomplishment. For such an honor, Kaylee will be recognized with an All-State speech banner, which will hang in the MEC. Congratulations, Kaylee, on such a great accomplishment. For Marquette in Motion, this has been Justina Denlinger.
Thanks, Justina. Now here are Jeb and Garrett to tell us about other spring happenings and upcoming new spring sports.
Thanks, Miranda. As we transition to spring sports, let's acknowledge the new and returning faces from the Marquette coaching staff this spring.
In track, Mr. Kaiser is being joined this year by Ms. Draus, who is taking over as the boys' track coach. Mr. Kaiser is taking head of the girls' track this season.
The track team saw their first action of the season yesterday, March 22nd, with the indoor Tri-Rivers Conference meet at the University of Dubuque. We'll have those full results for you in next week's edition.
Soccer is also seeing a change in coaching. Gary Peniston will take over this year as the boys' head soccer coach and will be an assistant coach for the girls' team.
The soccer girls will have Chris Meedinger returning as head coach. Mr. Meedinger will also be an assistant coach once again for the boys' team.
The girls' soccer team will begin their season with a scrimmage against DeWitt on March 26th, and the boys will begin with a tournament in Solon on Saturday, March 30th.
Finally, the boys' golf team will have Noah Cornelius returning as coach, and the girls will be welcoming a new coach, Jordan Albertson.
Golf meets will begin at home against Midland on Monday, April 1st.
And we'll be right back here next week with more sports news. From Marquette in Motion, this has been Jeb Schwager
And Garrett Krieg
with your Marquette Sports Report.
Thanks, guys. Now, another special guy visited our recording studio here at Marquette on Wednesday of this week, U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley. Here are 10 things you may or may not know about the man.
Number 10. The senator was raised on a farm in New Hartford, Iowa, and worked in factories.
Number 9. Senator Grassley received his bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Northern Iowa. He also received his master's degree from there. However, his Ph.D. came from the University of Iowa.
Number 8. He married his wife Barbara in 1954, and the two have 5 children.
Number 7. His son, Robin, currently operates the family farm.
Number 6. Senator Grassley holds the longest consecutive voting streak in Senate history, as he hasn't missed a vote since 1993.
Number 5. Referred to as the patron saint of whistleblowers, Senator Grassley makes a fervent effort to work to protect those who come forward to report wrongdoing.
Number 4. Every year since he's been senator, Senator Grassley has made it a point to visit each county in Iowa.
Number 3. This January, Senator Grassley was appointed pro tempore and, as such, is third in line for the presidency, following the vice president and the Speaker of the House.
Number 2. Chuck Grassley is currently the longest-serving senator in office and is 12th on the list for the longest-serving senator ever in America.
And number 1. On March 20th, he came to Marquette for a special interview. We'll have that interview coming up right after the break.
Welcome back to Marquette in Motion, and here now is our interview with Senator Chuck Grassley.
Welcome to Marquette in Motion. Today we have the opportunity to sit down with United States Senator, and currently the longest-serving senator in our country, Mr. Chuck Grassley. Senator Grassley, thank you so much for making the trip to our school and for taking the time to talk to us today.
Well, I welcome the opportunity to visit your school because I don't get very many young people like you to come to my open town meetings like I'll have when I'm done here at DeWitt. And also speaking through the radio to all my constituents gives me a chance to communicate, and communication is the essence of representative government.
Yeah, well, we were so excited to meet with you. We each came in before the school day began, and I hope you had a good drive to Bellevue this morning.
Yeah, I stayed overnight at Baymont.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, Senator Grassley, going right into the questions, even though you were raised on a farm in New Hartford, you decided to obtain your master's degree in political science from the University of Northern Iowa in 1956. What attracted you to politics during your high school and college years?
Yeah. It started actually a little bit before high school, but through high school and into college. It was mother and dad that were never active in politics. They were good citizens and they voted, but they were small farmers and basically around family and farm. But my mom and dad were always talking politics and government generally, and more importantly, history. So I grew up with that and just decided, I love government and that I was going to major in political science.
You've been representing Iowans for more than 60 years, beginning with your time in the Iowa House of Representatives in 1959, then in the United States House of Representatives in 1975, then you started your term as one of Iowa's 2 senators in 1981. In fact, you're currently 12th on the list of the longest-serving senators of the United States. What's your secret to your longevity in serving Iowans?
Yeah. First of all, let me clarify so that people know that since 1789, there's been about 1,970 senators serving. So when you said that I was 12th, that'd be 12th out of those 1,970. I think the answer to longevity is that people of Iowa are very tolerant. They might even not agree with you all the time with your political views, but if you're fairly moderate and responsible in your approach to governing and your approach to decision making, and you don't appear to be an extremist, whether Republican or Democrat, and whether the senator's a Republican or Democrat, because don't forget, I served with Senator Harkin, a Democrat, for 30 years of the 39 years that I've been in the Senate. So he was liberal, I was conservative, but just doing your job, trying to represent the people, not being an extremist, and letting people know that you haven't forgotten your roots there in Iowa, understanding that Washington, D.C., because it's all government, is an island surrounded by reality. This is the real world out here. You don't get what we call Potomac fever and love your job in Washington and love Washington more than you love Iowa, and you haven't forgotten your roots. I think people will vote for you whether you're Republican or Democrat, as long as you fit into these things and they know that Iowa is first in your mind.
Okay, so your last missed vote was on July 20th, 1993, when Iowa incurred some serious flooding. To put that into context, none of the students at Marquette were even alive 26 years ago. You hold the record for senators with more than 9,000 consecutive votes. What does this record mean to you?
Well, actually, it's kind of an insignificant record from this standpoint, that I could have missed lots of votes and not make a big difference. But I think people think of Washington, we don't take life very seriously, our job very seriously. We're in office for political power or to get rich quick or to have social prestige. They don't think of our working very hard, and I'm not saying that we do work hard. But I do want to say this, that when I can say to the people of Iowa, I haven't missed a vote in, what is it now, 25 years, yeah. 26, 27 years, that when we're in session, I'm there doing my job. And then just like I can say, you might ask me why I go to all 99 counties every year to hold a Q&A with my constituents. Because when we aren't in session, then I'm back in Iowa communing with people of the state of Iowa. I just want, it's a record not of significance by itself. It's just one way of showing people that I take my job seriously and that I'm on the job.
Now, I hope you don't mind me asking, but we need your thoughts on a topic that has come up a lot in the past election cycle. Do you believe that our country will ever adopt term limits for senators, members of the House, or for those that serve in the Supreme Court?
We could. And you won't believe this because I've been in office 39 years. You won't believe that in 1996 or 97 or 98, it was an issue that came from the grassroots up. It didn't come from the top down. And the House passed it. And we got about 55 votes for it in the United States Senate. But you have to amend the Constitution. And it takes 67 votes to amend the Constitution. So I voted for it. It would have been 2 terms, or in the House of Representatives, it would have been 6 2-year terms, so 12 years in the House, 12 years in the Senate, and I would vote for it again, but for it to come up again, I don't think it's going to come from the top down. In other words, you aren't going to have senators saying we should limit ourselves, but if the people do like they did 20-some years ago, bring the issue up, I think it's got a good chance of passing.
Okay, Senator Grassley, you are the head of the United States Finance Committee of the 116th Congress. How will you continue to be an advocate for rural America?
Oh, that's pretty darn easy because agriculture and small business is the backbone of the economy of Iowa, and tax policy relating to small business and farming is one of the main things. So as having tax policy that encourages small business and agriculture is very important, particularly being able to pass on those small businesses and those farms from one generation to another. And then we also have jurisdiction over trade, and because we it doesn't matter whether it's John Deere tractors at 24% or our farm crops at about 30%, or some financial services like Principal Financial in Des Moines might have. Trade is very important because we produce more than we can consume domestically, and so we have jurisdiction over trade policy. So promoting trade, like right now, the U.S.-Mexico-Canadian trade agreement is very important for us to get through the United States House and Senate, as one example. Other things is within our jurisdiction is Social Security and Medicare. So the large percentage of Iowans that are senior citizens, probably 3rd or 4th in the nation as a percentage. So preserving Social Security and Medicare in our jurisdiction is very important for serving Iowans as well.
There's a saying that goes, politics as usual, but your tenure in American politics has certainly witnessed and endured the evolution of partisanship politics. Senator, are we at a better place now in terms of getting things done in our government, or was there a time when bipartisanship was better embraced?
There's too much partisanship now, and maybe more than ever, but let me explain if you would be patient. There's not as much as you think, because maybe you people here doing this radio program, you call yourself journalists. That'd be legitimate if you did. You ask any journalist, and controversy makes news. But when people get along, it doesn't make news. So when controversy, that's all you see, you get kind of a distorted view of partisanship. I'll give you an example from the committee that I chaired for the last 4 years, the Senate Judiciary Committee. If you remember the Supreme Court nominees and other judges, there was always disagreement, strong disagreement between Republicans and Democrats. So that makes the news. So you think, well, Republicans and Democrats on the Judiciary Committee never get along. Well, you're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you now. In the 4 years that I was chairman of the committee, 61 bills got out of committee. Every bill was bipartisan. 45 of those bills got through the United States Senate. 34 of those bills were signed by either a Republican or Democrat president. But 61 bills getting out of committee in a bipartisan way, we get along. So you never read about it.
Stay tuned. We'll have more with Senator Grassley after these messages.
Welcome back to Marquette in Motion. Here's the rest of the interview with Senator Chuck Grassley. All right, you're a lover of history, but not so much a fan of the History Channel. What is the channel missing that you'd like to see?
History. I think it goes with the name, and you pay for it. You ought to get history, right?
I'm a member of the track and field team, and I understand you started jogging after the age of 65. I'd like to challenge you to a race, but instead I'll ask a question. What made you decide to become a fellow runner, and what advice would you have for someone thinking of picking up the hobby?
Yeah. In 1998 or I think it was 98 that I decided to start running. For 2 or 3 years, I had been chairman of the aging committee. And you go around to the nursing homes of Iowa, and you find out that the recreation directors at those nursing homes have such a difficult time getting people to do just simple exercises. And I thought, ye gods, I don't want this to happen to me. So I started running at age 65, so I've been running 20 years now, although I have slowed up considerably. When I started at age 65, I remember doing competitive races in 9-minute miles, so 27 minutes for a 5K. I'm not going to tell you how long it takes me now. In fact, it would be more honest for me to say I'm a walker runner, not just a runner.
Each year, you hold at least one meeting in every one of Iowa's 99 counties. Thank you for visiting Jackson County today, and thank you for visiting Marquette Catholic. Here we know that faith is the foundation of our actions and how we treat others. How has your faith influenced you in your life and career?
How is my what?
How has your faith influenced you in your life and career?
My faith?
Yes.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. It's kind of your relationship with other people. I think Jesus Christ talked about love. In the Greek language, there's 7 words for love, and I don't know what all 7 words are, but some of them refer to brotherly love, some of them sexual love, but there's a word, agape. I think it kind of interpreted to have an intense consideration of the welfare of your fellow man. Okay, so I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and so you got to live it. In fact, it's better if you live it than if you talk it, because people look at you. Do you live up to your standards? See? Or do you act like you tell people you believe? And I think the way Jesus told us to treat people is how I see my faith, whether I'm a politician or a farmer or students like you or, any profession. It's what you do with other people. So I don't think it's something special just because I'm in politics. It's got how you live your life.
Okay, going off of that, family is also very important to you, with 5 children, 9 grandchildren, and 8 great-grandchildren, yet it all started with a marriage. For you, that was back in 1954. You once tweeted, "The wedding started at 2 o'clock. Barbara got there at 2:15. Worth the wait." There's just got to be a good story behind that tweet. Can you share it with us?
I think that they had a flat tire. But I was thinking I was being stood up. I was really kind of afraid.
Yeah, you couldn't call her or anything.
No, that's right. I could. So, but it's lasted 64 years, and there's been ups and downs, but never. I always tell people she divorces me once a month.
Our radio show broadcasts out of KMAQ and all across the Great Maquoketa area. For all of the high school students out there listening in today that are interested in politics, what can we be doing now to help us get into the realm of politics?
Okay. Do a lot of reading, and that doesn't mean reading just about politics, but I think some about government, but more importantly history, particularly the early history of our country, is very important to understanding, because you got to understand the past to find your way through the future within our country. And there's all sorts of possibilities in America, considering the fact that, in most countries, people have freedoms based on what their government gives us. But if you read the Declaration of Independence, we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You don't get it from the government, because if you get it from the government, it can be taken away from you. But if God gives it to you, it can't be taken away from you. The Constitution of the United States isn't something that gives you certain rights. It protects your rights from government, so government can't take them away from you. And so we're a very unique relationship between government and people, that respect. So I think as long as we continue down the road of the freedom of the individual, and we have a economic system that allows you opportunities and for you to do whatever the best of your mind or the best of your labor can give it an opportunity to succeed, and you're rewarded for succeeding and you feel success in it. And we have a political system that backs up that economic system, and we have a social system where the individual is more important than the group. I think that we have a good chance of succeeding.
Sticking with the topics of high school students in our country, college tuition costs continue to rise, but you have long championed tax incentives to make higher education accessible and affordable to all who wish to obtain it. What developments have you seen in this area, and when do you think students and families will see the effects of the work being done?
Yeah. Well, we see the effects every day when people succeed as a result of education, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a BA degree or a master's degree. You can go to a community college and learn how to be a good craftsman at something, anything. I mean, I think it's important, but just remember that every day is a learning experience. And so beyond that, I think what I've learned is, and you are right, I have championed tax credits for people going to college because middle class doesn't get the help. If you're wealthy, you can get to college. If you're poor, you got some loans and Pell Grants and stuff like that, but people in the middle don't. So I've kind of championed that. But I think the best thing that I can do for people is to get rid of a policy that has encouraged people to get into debt. Because, you go to a university, the university counselor has to tell you the maximum amount you can borrow. I remember talking to President Mason when she was president of the University of Iowa. She says the average student debt is about $29,000, but if they borrow what it takes for tuition, books, and room and board, it'd be about $16,000. So people borrow more than they need to go to college. You should know ahead of time what it takes to get a degree. Don't borrow another cent. The federal government has a policy. We tell you everything you can borrow, and then you get into debt. So the government's promoting you getting into debt. So think about, don't borrow every penny you can borrow. Borrow just the basic necessities, and then you don't have this massive debt. So we got to do away with that federal policy. Another thing I'd like to do, by the way, this is in a bill that I call Know Before You Owe. So the no part of it is, well, know that you don't have to borrow at all. Mm-hmm. Don't borrow at all, but also look ahead 4 years. If you're going to major in Greek literature, maybe there are not enough jobs to pay for it. So figure out 4 years, are you going to be able to get a job that'll pay off the debt? I run into a lot of people get a BA degree. They're going back to a community college to learn something so they can make a living. You better think about majoring in political science. You'll be a teacher of political science, but then you run out of positions to teach, So I'm just to warn you. By the way, I want to tell you, and I'll probably tell you again when I meet your fellow students, but I have a intern program in Washington, D.C., so if your mom and dad will let you come and live there. I have 7 college interns for 3 months in the fall, 7 for 3 months in the spring, and then during the summer we have so many applicants, we have 2 6-week sessions. So you get a chance to come and work in my office, work with my full-time employees, learn government by experience, interact with me, go to committee meetings if you have time, and we make time for all this stuff. And I even buy you lunch or breakfast usually in the members' dining room, if you're interested in that sort of stuff. So gives you a chance to learn about government. And about 2/3 of my staff are used to be interns in my office.
After your time in the Senate ends in 2023, what legislation that you helped to introduce or support do you hope will continue to live on?
Well, one that's been living on since 1986 is the False Claims Act that has brought $57 maybe 58 or 59 billion dollars of fraudulently taking money back into the federal treasury. Another one that I hope lives on, that Congress never exempts itself from laws that apply to you. From 1938 to 1995, Congress passed about a dozen laws that didn't apply to us as employers. They would have applied to your school here as employers. So I got a bill passed that had those laws apply to us the same way as they apply to everybody else. Another thing is the wind energy tax credit. I'm the father of the wind energy tax credit. We get 38% of our electricity from wind. I hope we continue to develop getting more electricity from alternative energy instead of fossil fuels. It's just 3 examples.
All right, finally, all of us will have the right to vote in 2023. What advice would you have for young voters considering the future of our country?
Before you vote, I hope you're an avid follower of not necessarily every day, but to some extent, the issues before Congress, the issues of the 2020 election, if you vote this year, or 2022 elections, if you vote 2 years from now, and don't just use one source. You know, don't look, if you're conservative, don't just look at Fox News. If you're a liberal, don't look at CNN. Flip back and forth. Read more than one newspaper. You young folks are reading off of blogs and social media stuff and internet and all that stuff. Don't just use one source.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today's interview with Senator Chuck Grassley. Thank you once again, Senator Grassley, for visiting our humble recording studio here at Marquette and for sharing your insights with us today. We'll get a picture with you before you go, please. It has been a real pleasure talking with you this morning.
And it's been a pleasure. You've had very fair questions. I appreciate it very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Grassley. Now, here are Macy and Amy to end the show looking ahead.
On Monday, freshman Kaylee Coos will be participating in the All-State Festival individual speech event.
Tuesday is the Junior Renewal Day. There is also a girls' soccer scrimmage at DeWitt at 5 p.m. That evening, beginning at 6 in the Parish Center, is the preschool open house, with kindergarten to follow at 7 p.m.
Wednesday, the 27th, is Marquette's annual spring blood drive.
On Thursday, the Marquette Choir will perform at 6 p.m. at the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce annual dinner at Offshore.
Friday, March 29th, is Dance Marathon at Marquette from 6 p.m. until midnight.
There will be a varsity boys soccer tournament on Saturday at Solon with the game starting at 8 a.m. For Looking Ahead, this has been Macy Kramer
and Amy Sieverding
for Marquette in Motion.
Thanks, girls, and thank you for tuning in to a very special edition of Marquette in Motion. For Marquette in Motion, this has been Hallie Kilberg
And Miranda Peters.
and remember,
Stay informed.
stay involved,
Stay
in motion.